Why is Bernie surging? He's surging because he's genuine. He's genuinely awful. He's genuinely a socialist. His ideas are genuinely indefensible. His life is genuinely undistinguished. He genuinely didn't really have a job until he was like 40. But he is genuine. He is the real deal. He almost certainly knew Karl Marx when he was a young man. He almost certainly knew Stalin when they were hanging out at bars in Russia. He's genuine, and he's offering a genuine alternative to his colleagues in the Democratic field and even to Trump. Bernie is so attractive to a certain segment of the left, he's even got one of the hottest chicks in the world to endorse him, the model Emily Ratajkowski. Emily Ratajkowski, who is in almost every way the opposite of Bernie Sanders. He's old, she's young. He's not terribly physically attractive. She's one of the most attractive women in the world. He's a millionaire. She's also a millionaire. I guess they're both millionaires. I'm seeing a thread here with socialists. Here is Emily Ratajkowski's endorsement of Bernie Sanders.
Hi, I'm Emily Ratajkowski, and I'm endorsing Bernie Sanders for president. I'm 28. I'm a millennial, a true millennial. You know, I think one of the things that's so interesting about young people supporting Bernie Sanders is that he's not like a young, sexy candidate. What he says speaks so much to what people want that sort of who he is, it's so much beyond just one man. Bernie is extremely genuine, he's consistent, he's powerful, not because of who he is as one person, but because of the way that he invigorates people and excites them and brings together this movement. So when Bernie sort of popped up on the radar as this guy who had been arrested in the 60s and had been consistent in his policies, not only has he always advocated for healthcare, he's also always been on the right side as far as civil and humanitarian issues.
All right, there's a lot to digest in that crazy statement, but it tells you a lot. Actually, that statement tells you a lot. Why do young people like Bernie Sanders? Broadly, why are young people identifying with socialists? You know, there are polls that come out every so often that the majority of millennials identify as socialists. The good news is only a minority of them can define what socialism is. But socialism is on the rise in a way that would be unthinkable 10 or 15 years ago. Why? Well, in part, it's because their parents are baby boomers. Their parents were the radicals of the 1960s. In part, it's because they've had a K through college education that has prepped them to veer steadily to the left. In part, it's because they were born, in many cases, after the fall of the Berlin Wall. They don't remember the horrors of communism. And by the way, even during the Soviet Union, even during those awful decades of communism, the left denied it, and the American left has never really apologized for their support of communism abroad. But I think the fourth reason gets to the essence of the difference between conservative and leftist political philosophy. We'll get into the conservative point a little bit when we talk about the passing of that great conservative thinker, Roger Scruton, which is, for conservatives, there is an intrinsic limiting principle on our political ideas. To be a conservative is to be fundamentally politically humble, right? Michael Oakeshott, the British conservative philosopher, said that to be conservative, it's not just about free markets and low taxes and small government and keep your gun and go to church, right? It's not just that. It's to prefer the tried to the untried, the familiar to the unfamiliar, the bound to the unbound, the limited to the limitless, present laughter to utopian bliss. We want to conserve things. We don't want to run crazy. Our political ambition is not that high. We believe in human nature. We don't think you can perfect human nature. We think we're fundamentally broken. We think we're fundamentally flawed. We're not going back to the Garden of Eden. There is a limit to what politics can accomplish. And that is why we need to cultivate virtue in ourselves and have a thriving civil society and have voluntary associations and limit the government's power, because guess what? We're not governed by angels. Right? That's it. Because that conservative view is so humble in the face of the prospect of politics, we generally don't get out ahead of our skis. For the left, there's no limiting principle. What's the limiting principle on the left? If you start in kind of 1960s America with the premises of the 60s that Western civilization is bad. Hey, hey, ho, ho, Western civ has got to go. The political establishment is bad. We need to, America's racist, America's sexist, America's bigoted, America's bad. Our history is bad. Our founding fathers are bad. If you start with those premises that you hate your country and you don't want to conserve any of it, then what's the limiting principle? Why would you ever stop? If you begin with the premise that mankind is perfectible and we're so close to utopia on Earth, if you only elect me, as Barack Obama said, the sea levels will decline, the Earth will begin to heal, speaking like he's got apocalyptic visions, or he's going to reinstitute the Garden of Eden. If that is your premise, there's no limit. And so it doesn't matter how moderate, relatively, Democrats of the 70s or 80s or 90s looked. It was ever thus. If you begin with the premises of leftism, you were going to run away into radicalism. We're seeing the fruits of that now. And Bernie Sanders is the embodiment of it. I mean, he is an old codger whose time has come. Bernie's been around forever. He was around St. Petersburg when he felt there was time for a change. And yet, he's just lasted so long that the Democratic Party has finally caught up with his leftist radicalism. Hey, Michael Knowles here, and the fact is, a life of cigars and scotch does not come cheap. So please be sure to subscribe to the Daily Wire on YouTube, because I depend heavily on your support to continue this wonderful lib-triggering life. Thanks.